What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update to the unstoppable Exodia. That's right, Exodia Millennium is such an incredibly fun deck. It has a good balance of being able to go first or second depending on whether you choose to use board breakers or if you choose to use hand traps. Me personally, I've decided to use board breakers in this particular version as there's just no better feeling than being able to go, cool, break the board, summon down this big guy and then attack the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the profile, show you what we've got, explain why we've got it, and I'll also show you some demo side deck options that you can kind of adapt to your personal playstyle and your personal preference in order to add to the deck when you're taking it to a competitive environment. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving headfirst into the profile, unfortunately, you do need to play every single one of the Exodia pieces, being the arms, legs, and the head. Now, the reason that this is unfortunate is for the pure fact that they are bricks. You can't really do a lot with them. You kind of want them to stay in the deck. However, if your deck is behaving and it does keep them in the deck, it's Dreamland and you don't really mind where they're coming from. But you do need to have all 5 pieces in order to be revealed to summon out the fusion monster, and you do sometimes need all 5 pieces to be equipped to the board off of the back of the quick play, which I definitely feel is well worth utilizing Obliterate Blaze, because it gives you that ability for piercing effect as well as being able to do more damage as well, giving your Exodia like 10k attack. So that's all of the pieces, of course. And then for the Millennium Monsters, we are playing triple Heart of the Blue Eyes. So this is your direct access to your Unk, and Unk is your ideal spell card because that's what's going to lead you into the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate incredibly easily. Now I do back this up, and a lot of people don't like this, but it's kind of just my preference is 2 shield. Now some people want to play 3 shield. The reason I'm not playing 3 shield is I do play other cards that help me get to Unk instead. And in the OTK version, you probably have a little bit more consistency because you're going to draw 1 more additional card. And if you have access to it, you can also play the Floroses or the Mole Chummies. To be completely honest, I'm not playing them in this particular build because I wanted to keep that in mind that, you know, they're not easily accessible to everyone. And more people that have been attracted to the Exodia deck, they're going to be building it on a bit more of a tighter budget. So I've kind of looked at alternatives for that one as well and kept that in mind. We're then playing triple Sangenjin. Now this is probably the best Millennium in my opinion, just because it leads you to everything else. This can get you into the Blue Eyes, which will then ultimately get you into the Unk. And the reason I think that you don't need to be playing the all 3 shields is the pure fact, in my opinion, it's probably one of the worst. Yes, it does have a little bit of a combo sense in this deck because you are going to be using it with a bit of spice with an effect Veiler in order to get you into a Muddy Mud Dragon, which can lead you into a Millennium Eyes Restrict, which, because it has Millennium in the name, does not leave the board when you summon out the Exodia, so it gives you another line of defense, which is very, very interesting, but it's kind of something that you need to keep an eye on, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on once we get to the extra deck and, of course, effect Veiler. But the idea is that I didn't want to use it as a mainstay staple combo piece because it doesn't give you aggressive out. When you're putting this on the board, you're going to put it in defense and you can't really do anything with it after that point. Yes, of course you can link it off, but when you're trying to push for an OTK, your link off, it needs to be something that is worthwhile. So you'd need to go for something like an SP Little Knight, and then when you're going down the route of an SP Little Knight, you need to get another monster on the board to go to an extra deck monster. So the best thing you can do is go for a Millennium Eyes Restrict and then try and build your way off of the back of that. I'm then playing the 1 golem that guards the Millennium Treasures. You can play 2 of this if you want to, and completely down to personal preference. Honestly, I'm quite happy with 1. It's all I've really needed. There's not really been a time where I'm like, damn, I really wish I had a second one, but I have no issues if you wanted to play more of them as well. One that is an absolute mandatory 3 of is, of course, triple Millennium Unk. This is the card that just allows you to reveal all 5 pieces of Exodia, fusion summon out your Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, and that's your Mac Daddy boss monster. It does spin back all monsters on the field back to the deck unless they are level 10 or higher Exodias, or, of course, Millennium monsters, and that is, of course, going to be very, very specific, and you can't special summon for the rest of the turn once you do that. We're then playing the Terraforming +2 Wedju Temple. I just really, really like this because this gives you another way. So this plus any monster, and because we're playing at some decent monster hand traps, it allows you to get into your Senganjin, you summon out the Senganjin, and then you search out your Blue Eyes. So in the past, when we didn't have Blue Eyes, of course, you'd go Senganjin, search out the shield, get you to your Unk. Whereas now, because we don't need to play that additional 2,000 life points to get to the Unk, you can go Senganjin, search out the Blue Eyes by paying 2,000 life points, Blue Eyes dump, grab you the Unk, and then you go from there. For the last two cards that are Exodia related, we are playing one Obliterate Blaze and the one Exod Fire of Rage. The Fire of Rage is just there in case you can't complete the OTK. You do have other cards that you can make in order to set you up a defensive board, and it's one of the ones that if you can't complete the OTK, you do as much damage as possible, and then you want to be ending your board on your Exodia with a board wipe in the form of the Fires of Rage, and then you also want to try and end your board with a Millennium Mars Restrict, and sometimes you'll go through the Silhouette Rabbit to get you the Azaroon statue, and that just means that you're ending your board on 3 forms of interruption, technically 4, rather than 1 or 2. For the board breaking options, and this is where I'm playing hand traps rather than, or some hand traps rather than direct stuff like ashes and everything else, is I'm playing triple Lava Golem. If you are going to go first, you can of course play Majesty's Fiend, which I think is a really kind of cool option, or of course Vanity's Fiend. But the thing that Majesty's Fiend really has with this deck is that when you have the Wedgie Temple in rotation, when you're putting the monsters into the spell and trap zones, they're activating as spells, they're not activating as monsters, so they get to summon themselves out, and then from that point on, you're just flooding the board with boss monsters, and your opponent can't use their monster effects. You can't either, but the idea is that when you're bringing out big boss monsters, you'll be able to win the game from that point on, or you just activate Unk, and then Unk would put Majesty's Fiend back into the deck, and you still get your ultimate Exodia out to finish the game off. I decided to go with Lava Golem. You can play Ras Firman if you want to, but honestly, Lava Golem is a lot easier to kind of clear off and deal with. Not to mention that if you do leave them with a Lava Golem, it can get you a win in burn damage, but it's also one of the ones that when you're looking at a Detonator board or like a Rise-Your end board, when you're looking at a Malice end board as well, sometimes the Malice will be a little bit trickier because they do usually only end on one monster, but then they can start activating their spells and their traps, or mainly their traps, to start bringing back their monsters and go from there. You could start considering stuff like the Bestials, but I didn't want to leave monsters on the board that I was only going to shuffle back in anyway. And then you could play for other board breakers. I've decided to go away from something like Raigeki because it destroys, and I was like, well, if I face a Rise-Your matchup, the card's pretty much dead. So I'd rather focus on other board breakers, which I'll show you in a little bit, that are going to be a bit more consistent and a bit more effective for me in all matchups that I'm going to be facing. For the other hand traps, I'm playing 2 Droll. I'm just trialing this out at the moment. Like, it really comes down to the environment. Sometimes the environment, a lot of decks are going to be searching. It does make plays a little bit more awkward. It's not as locked down as it would be against something like Dark World, for example, where you drop Droll on them, they can't play. It's one of them ones where you're trying to get a nice balance that you're going to make it a lot more awkward for your opponent, whether they are playing Rise or Fiendsmith, whether they are playing Malice, to make it a bit more awkward for them to continue their plays, and then they have to shift around a little bit, which means their end board probably won't be as strong as it wants to be, and then that's when you can swoop in with a Lava Golem and build it from there. I'm then main decking triple Phantasme. Now the reason I'm main decking Phantasme is this would technically be the spot if you wanted to main deck something like a Floros, but I thought that Phantasme is a little bit more of a budget option. It does give you nice targeted protection, and it also lets you fix your hand. If you do see multiple pieces of Exodia, you can put them back into the deck, or if you activate Phantasme and draw into the final pieces of Exodia, happy days. You put back anything that isn't Exodia pieces and win the duel. But the idea is this just allowed you to fix your hand a little bit. It acted as a pseudo ability to get into a Floros. And then on top of that, because I wasn't playing anything that needed to not have monsters on the board, stuff like Evenly Matched and Lightning Storm, I felt that playing Phantasme was absolutely fine. You can sub this out for any hand trap of your choice, Ogres if you want to, Mourners if you want to, you can go for more board breakers if you want to. It really is entirely up to you. I just thought it was a good option to utilise. I've then got 2 Effect Veiler. Now the idea behind Effect Veiler is that often the Millennium Shield, you would summon out the Millennium Shield, you would normal summon down the Effect Veiler, as the only normal summon of this entire deck is Lava Golem. You would then normal summon the Effect Veiler, synchro into Muddy Mud Dragon, use Muddy Mud Dragon's effect to fusion into a Millennium Eyes Restrict, and that's just another monster that doesn't get spun back from the board to the deck when you activate the Unk, and it sets you up another form of negation. So shout out to Godsmith of Chaos, that was the first profile that I saw that in. I looked at their Exodia build and they've been really cooking with Exodias. I saw that and I was like, whoa, that's actually really kind of cool. The fact that it stays on the board is insane, and it just adds another layer of negation. Not to mention that main decking Veiler is always going to be good anyway, so you could play 3 of it if you wanted to, but I decided to go with 3 Imperm just because it let me play around talents a little bit more, and then Imperm is a little bit better for going second than Veiler. So it's one of the ones that Imperm, if I hold it back, I can Imperm a Detonator and then continue to make my plays if I haven't opened up a Lava Golem or a board breaker of anything such. So it just gives you a little bit more protection. It's obviously a great hand trap for going first as well. It just gives you a bit more versatility. Of course, the one Azaroon, and then the other cards that are going to lead you to the board breakers can lead you to the Anks, which is why I'm also not focusing so much on Shield, is Triple Tactics Thrust, backed up by double Ultimate Slayer and 1 Triple Tactic Talons. Now, your Triple Tactics Thrust will have double use because it actually then allows you to play more control cards when you're going into your side deck, which means you have a bit more variety. It gets you to one of the best cards in the format right now to help you break a board, and that is the form of Ultimate Slayer. Because you have so much flexibility in your extra deck, you can afford to play 2 Link targets, 2 Fusion targets, 2 Synchro targets, and then either 2 XYZ targets if you want to, or 1. I'm personally playing 1 XYZ target, but all of the targets you are playing are going to provide you with double destruction or double interaction. What I mean by that is, off of the back of Ultimate Slayer, and I'll quickly show you some of the targets now. You send Ferrogy, you get to draw a card and put a card back to your deck. You send your Evil Twin Trouble Sunny. This will then, of course, spin back a monster because of the Ultimate Slayer. And then we are main decking the 1 Evil Twin Kisakil and Leela, which means that you can then use the effect to banish this from the graveyard, to send that from the deck to the graveyard, and then get rid of another one of your opponent's monsters. You don't have to main this, but I felt that bumping it up to 42 cards and trying to bury this rather than having this as a side card option gives you a little bit of flexibility. If you're in a fusion matchup, Slayer would send to spin back, and then you'll send the Tis, and the Tis would then destroy. You've got Garura if you don't want to destroy it or can't destroy, that they let you draw a card. You've got Packbit, which will push one of your opponent's monsters back into the spell and trap zone. And then you've got Omega, which can help you recycle some of your monsters or some of the cards you might want in your graveyard. You can also consider the Malong as well as an alternative option. This will just give you another way of being able to bounce a card to the hand, which is quite useful. And then the final card we are playing is the Agitator, because this will deal with the Detonator, because you can use this to send the Detonator, and then you can negate another monster on the field or another card on the field. So it's just trying to make sure you cover all of your bases with what you've got access to. And I felt that Ultimate Slayer was one of them cards that you could very easily afford to main deck, and it will help you out in the majority of matches just because you have so much flexibility. I'd much rather that than something like Super Poly, for the pure fact that whatever you Super Poly, yes, it breaks your opponent's board, but more times than not, you're not going to leave it on the board. And the best thing that you can do with a Super Poly target would be Garura, so that you can link it off and get the draw. But then if you're going to be doing that, you're really limiting the targets you can actually utilize. So moving on to the extra deck, of course, we are playing triple Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. It's very, very rare you'll go through 3. You can very easily go through 2. It will pretty much lead you to game when you've made the first one, and if your first one stays on the board after you've negated and used Exod Rage of Fire, you're then going to be able to push for the OTK the next turn. Millennium Eyes Restrict, of course, coming off the back of the Muddy Mud Dragon. So you would use your Shield, which is a level 5, plus your Veiler, which is a level 1 to get into the Muddy Mud Dragon. Use the effect to fuse. This would then treat this self as Millennium Relinquish, which is what is required for the Millennium Eyes Restrict. And then you just need one other effect monster, which will get you into the Millennium Eyes, which is really easy to do, because you can very easily just go Senganjin, search out the Shield, Shield summon itself out, and then you'd go normal summon Veiler, Veiler plus Shield gets you in the Mud Dragon. You would have already got an Unk at one point because you would have got it off of the back of Shield. So then you're ending your board on Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, your Millennium Eyes Restrict, and then some. If you do have more materials onto the board as well, you can link them off and go into the Silo Hat Rabbit, and that is your additional effect monster as well. So you're adding an Azaroon, you're adding a Millennium Eyes Restrict, an Unstoppable Exodia, and an Exod Fires of Rage. So you're pretty much covering all bases with back row, front row, negations, you name it. The other monsters that you will actually summon in this deck will be SP Little Knight, Silo Hat Rabbit, and then Psychic Aim Punisher. Now, Psychic Aim Punisher is going to come more down to the side deck, because that's when you would main deck in or side deck in something like a Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, which is a level 3 tuner. And then the idea is, if you're burning your life points away because you're activating stuff like your Millennium monsters, you can actually then just go, cool, summon out the Senganjin, or you get a Blue Eyes back from the graveyard from during your opponent's turn. Normal summon down a hand trap that might be Ash if you choose to play it. It will be the Mourner if you choose to main it. You've also got Ghost Ogre as well. Normal summon that, Synchro into Psychic Aim Punisher, and then straight away before you know it, you've got a massive boss monster in the form of Psychic Aim Punisher. And then obviously the other targets that we're just going to be sending, you're not going to be summoning these at all off of the back of anything, but you're going to be sending them off of your Ultimate Slayer. Is your 2 Link targets I've already mentioned, your 2 Fusion targets, your 2 Synchro targets, and your 1 XYZ target. So pretty straightforward and simple on that one. It just has the flexibility. If you want to go down the Super Poly route, by all means you can do. I just feel that the Ultimate Slayer is probably a little bit more effective for the format right now. Moving into the side deck options or main deck options if you want to. Triple Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. I just like this because it puts your opponent on a bit of a ticking clock, and you're just sitting there going, okay, cool, Dogwood, and then your Exodia is getting stronger and stronger, and when you're activating the effects of your Senganjin, your Shield, and even your Golem, you don't really mind about burning those life points down because your Exodia will still be strong enough to finish the game off. Back row hate in the form of Cosmic Cyclone. If you are facing a lot of Malices, triple Artifact Lancer. If you're not, then don't even worry about it. And then you can play some one-ofs in the form of Secret Village, so that when you're going first, you have all of these different options for you. So you've got Secret Village that you're already playing Terraforming anyway, and then when you put an Exodia on the board that can become insanely powerful and has a spell of Trap Negate, your opponent really does struggle to out the Secret Village. The one Sanctum, so obviously it's just another way of going first. Set the Sanctum. Sanctum gives you access to your Artifact Lance. D-Barrier, pretty standard on that one. DDG, so obviously you can play Dimension Shifter if you want to, which I will mention. But the idea is you're going first, you get this, you set this off of your Triple Tactics Frost, you activate this, and then only during your opponent's turn, any monster sent to the graveyard is banished, which is obviously going to be useless against Malice, you wouldn't put it in, but against Ryzeal it can be a little bit tricky for them to deal with. For Malice, you can also go for a destructive Daruma Cannon, because obviously their Link monsters can't be flipped face down, and then that's going to be able to send them all to the graveyard. And then even if you use this early, you can put all their monsters face down, and they won't be able to use as Link material. Another option, again, is Dimension Shifter, and then, of course, Majesty's Fiend. So this obviously isn't a perfect 15-card side deck. These are just different options. You can look, cherry-pick which ones you want to do, put them all together. But the idea is you're trying to balance your ability of playing Floodgate cards for going first or second when you're unsure. You're playing Floodgate cards or strong cards that could be set off of the back of your Triple Tactics Frost and for going first. And then, of course, you're playing a card that you can replace your Lava Golem with, which will be just as effective and can be just as restrictive. And then, of course, you've got your format-specific hand traps. You've then got your board breakers in the form, or the back row hate, sorry, in the form of Cosmic Cyclone. And then, of course, you do have Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. That's just a really annoying card that your opponent needs to deal with, and you're going to benefit off the back of it. Of course, you can always consider stuff like Forbidden Droplet, which would always be quite useful for you as well. So it really does come down to your preference, what you want to play, how you decide to play it, and what you want to work with. But that's pretty much it for the entire profile. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.